John, it's not the decision that a lot of people expected. I think a lot of people expected the Supreme Court to definitively rule one way or the other about whether race can be used. Tell us about this complicated ruling, and also it's a 7-1 ruling.
Well, that's what was not expected. It's a nuanced decision. It's vintage Kennedy. Basically, he said you can still consider race for purposes of diversity, but you have to satisfy a higher burden. This is going to make it tougher. He's saying you have to apply this strict scrutiny burden, and we're not going to accept a good faith argument that just because we're adding more African American students, it's going to make the school more diverse. You need to show us that there's no race-neutral approach that would achieve those types of goals. It's going to be hard to meet that, and he stressed that there's going to be no difference in how strict scrutiny applies here as in other areas. Now, what people need to remember is strict scrutiny is a very difficult standard for any government group, any government to meet. And here, the state of Texas had a system of taking the top 10% of students, and that did bring a degree of diversity. And it's going to be very difficult for them to say, in addition to that, we need to give race this type of weight. So what you have then is a decision that's going to make it tougher to use race as a criteria, but a decision that doesn't rule out the use of race. The court, in fact, embraces the race factor in achieving diversity. So in that sense, I think universities can take from this one hopeful note, that the court did not say, we're going to create a bright line rule. Since 1978, we've been trying to deal with race. We keep on getting these cases every 5 or so years. No more consideration of race. They didn't say that.
They didn't do that. You can still use race as a criterion, but the question is whether or not the standard they create meets what the Supreme Court calls close scrutiny.
That's right. It's a difference between a 10K and a marathon. They're saying you've got to do the marathon. You've got to show us that there's no other way you could achieve this type of diversity, and we're not going to accept good faith arguments. It's going to have to be concrete figures, and you have to rule out all alternatives. That's going to be difficult.